It's 2011. NATO jets thunder across Libyan skies. Bombs rain down on strategic targets, and one of them is a Brega pipe-making plant, the very heart of the great man-made river project. That strike cripples Libya's capacity to replace or expand the pipelines that carry water from the desert to its cities. Thankfully, the NATO bombs couldn't reach another target deep within the belly of the desert. It's the one target whose contamination could kill more people than any missile. My name is DJ Bokali, and Africa is my superpower. Welcome to African Awakening, the Pan-African show that is awakening, uniting, and transforming Africa. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Welcome home. If you're not yet a member of this channel, what are you waiting for? Become a general in the movement. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert lies a resource so powerful it could determine the fate of entire nations. A resource that Muammar Gaddafi tapped into in a historic manner. It's not oil or uranium, neither is it diamond or cobalt. It's water. This is the story of how Gaddafi's spectacular dream became the world's most vulnerable lifeline, and why whoever controls it controls the destiny of North Africa. Today, we're diving deep into Gaddafi's greatest achievement, the Great Man-Made River. We will also look into how the Great Man-Made River can ensure that the grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam boasts peace and prosperity, not war. The Great Man-Made River is the largest underground water transportation system ever built. And yet, this engineering marvel might be the most dangerous weapon that you've never heard of. Because what I'm about to tell you will change how you think about water forever. Let's rewind to 1953. Libya is one of the poorest countries on earth. It's essentially a massive desert with a few coastal cities clinging to the Mediterranean. Only 5% of the entire country gets enough rainfall to grow anything. The rest, pure unforgiving Sahara. If you lived in Tripoli or Benghazi back then, your water came from coastal wells that were contaminated with salt water. Imagine trying to drink seawater every single day. That was the reality of millions of Libyans. But then something incredible happened. In 1953, oil companies were drilling deep into the southern Libyan desert, looking for black gold. What they found instead was something far more precious. Far more precious. At 500 meters down, their drills hit something unexpected. Not oil, not gas, but pure crystal clear fresh water. Lots of it. More water than anyone had ever imagined possible. Scientists were baffled. How could there be massive freshwater reservoirs beneath one of the world's driest deserts? How is that possible? Here's where the story gets mind-blowing. That water had been sitting there for 40,000 years. Picture North Africa 40,000 years ago. It wasn't a desert. It was green, lush. Rivers flowed. Rain fell regularly. It was like a prehistoric paradise. When that ancient climate changed and the region dried up, all that rainwater didn't disappear. It seeped deep underground, trapped in massive sandstone formations, perfectly preserved like liquid time capsules. Scientists estimate that there are 150,000 cubic kilometers of this fossil water sitting beneath Libya, Chad, Egypt, and Sudan. To put that into perspective, that's enough water to cover the entire state of Texas in a lake 15 feet deep. That's a lot of water, and it has a name. This is the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer System, the largest fossil water aquifer on Earth, and Libya controlled the biggest chunk of it. When Muammar Gaddafi seized power in 1969, he inherited a country dying of thirst. But he also inherited this incredible secret beneath the sand. Most leaders would have seen this as a nice bonus. Gaddafi saw it as destiny. In 1983, he announced something that made the world laugh. He was going to build the largest irrigation project in human history. He would pipe this ancient water for hundreds of kilometers north to Libya's coastal cities. This entailed carving massive tunnels deep in Libya. Engineers called it impossible. Economists called it insanity. The Western press mocked it as Gaddafi's pipe dream. But Gaddafi had a different name for it: the Great Man-Made River. What Gaddafi proposed was staggering in its ambition. Picture this: 5,000 kilometers of pipeline, roughly the same distance from New York to London. 1,300 water wells drilled up to 500 meters deep into solid rock. Massive concrete pipes, each one weighing 80 tons. A system capable of delivering 5 million cubic meters of water per day. The cost? Nearly $30 billion, an equivalent of Libya's entire oil revenue for years. Would have to go into this project. But here's the crazy part. It actually worked. It worked. Phase 1 connected the eastern oil fields to Benghazi and Sirte. Imagine water that fell as rain 40,000 years ago, suddenly flowing through modern cities. Phase 2 brought water to Tripoli through pipelines stretching 1,000 kilometers from the Fezzan Basin. The western coast, parched for millennia, suddenly had abundant fresh water. By phase 3, the system was providing 70% of Libya's population with clean drinking water and irrigation. How amazing is that? If this had been done by Ronald Reagan, who was the US president at the time, he would have definitely won the Nobel Peace Prize. Gaddafi had literally turned desert into garden. International observers who had mocked the project were now calling it a masterful work of engineering genius. Water that could last for hundreds of years at current consumption rates was flowing to every major Libyan city. The results were immediate and dramatic. Cities that had struggled with contaminated saline water for centuries suddenly had an abundance of pure fresh water. Agricultural projects sprouted across the desert. Libya was now positioned to become the agricultural powerhouse of North Africa. In a region where Israel and Egypt dominated Mediterranean agriculture, Libya could surpass them both. But here's what makes this story truly chilling. The great man-made river wasn't just about water, it was also about power. Whoever controls the Nubian sandstone aquifer system controls the economies, foreign policies, and destinies of several countries in North Africa, in the Gulf, and in the Middle East. Think about it. In a region where water scarcity drives conflict, where growing populations strain diminishing resources, whoever controls this massive water reserve holds ultimate leverage. Look at Kashmir, which India and Pakistan have been fighting over for decades. Kashmir isn't really about territory. It's about the three rivers that originate there. The same thing applies to the disputes in Central Asia. They are about the Amudarya River. Water is the hidden force behind half of the world's conflicts, and Libya controlled the largest freshwater reserve on earth. Just a quick one before I go on. Last year, I wrote a book about historic African leaders like Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, Julius Nyerere, and of course, Ibrahim Traore. There are nearly 100 of them in that book. Many of you have already bought the book, and I'm very grateful for that. If you haven't bought it, please head on to Amazon and purchase your copy. Both physical and digital copies are available. Thanks a lot. Fast forward to 2011, the Arab Spring reaches Libya. Rebels rise against Gaddafi's regime. NATO intervenes with airstrikes. Suddenly, the great man-made river is transformed from Libya's greatest achievement into its most dangerous vulnerability. Think about that for a moment. Entire cities, millions of people, completely dependent on a pipeline system stretching across thousands of kilometers of desert. And every kilometer of that pipeline was a potential target. During the 2011 conflict, Libyan officials issued a chilling warning. NATO airstrikes on the great man-made river pipelines could cause a humanitarian and environmental disaster. But here's the truly terrifying part. It wasn't just about NATO bombs. Government forces could also cut off the water supply to rebel-held territories whenever they wanted. Opposition areas in the east were left with only the Ajdabiya reservoir, containing just 1 month's supply of water. Imagine that psychological warfare. Imagine knowing that your enemy could turn off your water supply like flipping a switch. No bombs needed, no bullets required. Just close a valve and entire cities start dying of thirst within weeks. Libya's water reserves don't exist in isolation. The Nubian sandstone aquifer stretches beneath Chad, Egypt, and Sudan. As these countries develop and as their populations grow, demand for this ancient water increases. Egypt, with over 100 million people crammed along the Nile, can tap into this water resource. That will lessen its total reliance on the Nile and potential conflict with Ethiopia because of that. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The great man-made river is mining a non-renewable resource. This fossil water took 40,000 years to accumulate. Once it's gone forever. Unlike normal aquifers that get recharged by rainfall, The Nubian sandstone aquifer is a finite resource. Over-extraction could even cause rising sea levels as underground pressure changes. But the key word here is over-extraction. If extraction is sustainable, this water can provide water to Libya, Egypt, Chad, and Sudan for decades and decades and decades. Today, as Libya struggles with political instability, the great man-made river remains both salvation and curse. Whoever controls Libya's government controls this incredible water weapon. But the implications stretch far beyond Libya's borders. In a world where climate change is making water scarcer, where populations are exploding in already water-stressed regions, control of the world's largest freshwater reserve becomes a matter of international security. Future conflicts in Africa, and indeed the rest of the world, may not be fought over oil or ideology. They will be fought over water. And the price sitting beneath the Sahara is worth more than all the oil in the Middle East. This leads me to some final critical questions. What happens when a collapsing state controls humanity's largest freshwater reserve? What happens when climate change makes that water even more precious? What happens when neighboring countries with growing populations and shrinking water supplies start a mad rush towards this liquid treasure underground? The next time you turn on a tap and clean water flows out, remember Libya. Remember that beneath the world's largest desert lies enough water to supply entire civilizations. Remember that in our thirsty world, water isn't just life, it's power. And in the wrong hands, it's the ultimate weapon. But in the right hands, it's life for millions and millions. What do you think? Is water the new oil? The last thing Africa needs is blood water. We must take preemptive action to ensure that water continues being life and not the source of conflict and death. My name is DJ Bokali and Africa is my superpower.